ช่วงสำหรับหัวข้อการบรรยายหัวข้อต่อไปนะคะจะเป็นหัวข้อ Automotive Trend and Development by ดร. ฮาโยะ นากาฮาระ จากทางบริษัท NT Information นะคะขอเสียงปรบมือให้กับดร. ฮาโยะด้วยค่ะ
Good afternoon, everybody. And thank you very much for the organization to invite me here to talk about the subject of automotive and the automotive PCB. HKPCA show, when I asked them, can you do two presentations? One is about the history of Thailand PCB industry, which I will talk on the day after tomorrow on Friday. So what else can you do? So I said, well, okay, more than half of the new PCB companies being constructed here in Thailand are targeting for automotive. So I thought maybe this is a good subject to talk about. It doesn't progress. In it?
Just a moment. Okay, I will connect to computer for you.
Okay.
2 minutes. You can talk
Okay.
something.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
2 minutes.
Okay. By the way, I came to Thailand the first time in 1986, and I visited KCE, which was only about 2-3 years old at the time. I met with Mr. Banja Ongosit, and since then, many times I visited KCE, and of course, KCE is one of the largest automotive PCB makers in the world, and definitely number one in Thailand. Although the company seems to be expanding the horizon of applications gradually. And when it comes to automotive statistics, there are many available. And say, for example, as far as the number of cars is concerned, some company says 75 million cars are sold. Some companies say over 100 million cars are sold. And the only way you can really make sure is to go through company one by one and read the annual report, which can be almost 700 pages. So it takes a long time to have a final picture. But anyway, it doesn't move. Okay. This is compiled by International Organization of Motor Vehicle Manufacturers. And this is the number of cars made in 2023, about 94 million cars. This includes passenger cars, trucks, buses, all kinds of cars. Many consultant company says light vehicle, and the number is way low. But you can see about approximately 90 million cars are made. And definitely China is number one, about almost 30% of the cars made in China, followed by United States. And third is Japan. And all the way down. And you'll be surprised, like Korea, yes, but Spain, for example, it's not a very big country, but they produce quite a bit of cars. Seat, you see Seat just west of Barcelona. There's a big factory there. But when it comes to number of cars sold, it's different. This is okay. Oh, okay. So, China again, 30 million cars, same amount as they produced. The U.S., you remember, U.S. production was about 10 million. They sold 16 million. So they are importing about 6 million into the United States. And India took over number 3 now, over Japan. And Japan, remember, slightly over 8 million cars, sold only less than 5 million. There's a big problem for young people. If you're living in Tokyo, you have to pay, you have to show to buy a car proof of a parking. And parking in Tokyo, 1 month costs about 400,000. No, excuse me, $40,000. And then down payment, monthly payment, about the same amount. And then gasoline and license, and every 2 years you have to pay enormous amount of money. So it costs $10,000. So a young man, 25 years old, who is making maybe $25,000, $10,000 is a big money, big part of so they stop buying. And many of the cars sold in Japan are very small ones. They call the K, which means less than 1,000 cc. But interesting thing is 50% of the cars sold is all hybrid. Hybrid, yes. And you know, Toyota is number 1 in the world. Their sales of EV is very, very low because they make so much money on hybrid. They are seeing, hey, maybe, and so they are concentrating on hybrid. And the European countries, in comparison to some of the big Asian countries, still buy a lot of cars. And I think that tells you the wealth of a country. If you are poor, you can't afford to buy a car. So Europe is still very rich, as you can see. Thailand, number 18. And this is going to change in the future. Okay? So, who was number 1? In 2023, Toyota, over 10 million car, followed by Volkswagen, Hyundai, Kia, Stellantis. Stellantis is the French, Peugeot, Renault, and then a Jeep, Chrysler, put together. And GM, Ford, Honda, Nissan. And interesting here, BYD and the Tesla, electric vehicle, now finally coming up, which shows you the future of the car trend. Another interesting thing, BMW. BMW sold 2.5 million cars. Sales value is $153 billion. And the $156 billion is GM. They have to sell little over 2 times more. So BMW, very expensive. Mercedes-Benz is also same way. Only 2.3 million and already very close to 2.5 billion. I have two Mercedeses. Actually, in the last 40 years, I keep buying Mercedes. But once I buy, I drive 20 years. No problem. And overall, instead of buying many cheap cars many times, one big reliable car is much economical. So here's the punch. Who are the top automotive PCB suppliers? Three top companies are Japanese. Because sales of car in Japan is only 4.5 million, but 29 million cars are made by 8 Japanese companies. And that is the reason why they are supplying all these boards. And KC is right here, number 6. I have approximately 100 lists, but it's too long, so I cut it off. But with this, about $9 billion, maybe a little over $9 billion, maybe it could be $10 billion. Everybody wants this data to measure against competitors. Well, take a look at this average exchange rate. Particularly Japanese, they are about 110. And then all of a sudden, they changed 141. This morning, I saw it 156. So if we kept 2018-19 exchange rate, they are actually 50% more. These numbers would be 50% more. But unfortunately, for the sake of comparison, we have to use some common currency, and I had to use the US dollar. There's also a whole lot of different data about the world print circuit market. I shouldn't say market. This is a production, okay? Lot of consulting company, research company mix up the production and consumption. This, I'm talking about the production. Here, North America, South America, they are importing more than $500 million. But China is definitely number one, more than half, maybe 60%. And between China and Taiwan, they are almost 60, 70%. Two biggest and powerful companies. Japan and the United States in year 2000 both had 32% share. Now it's down. China really killed it. So Thailand was a little over $3 billion last year. And Vietnam is right behind. But in the future, more and more investment is coming into Thailand than Vietnam. So I think that Thailand would just shoot up, yes. EV sales. is still growing, but the growth rate, like here you can see 40%, but now only about 20%. So it's slowing down. And China is still strong, but US way down, Europe way down. And there are several issues. One issue is there is not enough charging stations. But if you go to Shenzhen, there are more charging stations than gasoline stations. So it's a government policy. Number two, it's so inconvenient if you're renting a car. You have to go a long distance. You don't know where the hell this charging station is. And besides, electrical vehicle for equivalent size, it's a little bit more expensive. So common people struggling day to day, they cannot afford to buy. And the cruising distance also. I have, as I said, I have a 20 years old Mercedes. It's called R320, big station wagon. It's a diesel engine. And once I fill, it goes 650 miles, which is more than 1,000 kilometers. And I can go to Boston, back and Boston, no charge. If I use the electric, on the way somewhere I have to charge and spend about 2 hours waiting for turn. It's so inconvenient. And proponent of EV says it's clean. It is clean, no gas coming out. But where the hell electricity is being produced? They are still burning gases, coals. And so overall, it's not that clean. So as I said, EV sales rate in 2024 is expected to be slower. And one of the reasons why Chinese are buying more EV is the price competition. They are cutting prices. The only two Chinese makers are profitable. All the rest of them, red ink. So you have to read the story behind what's happening. It's a repeat. So 2022, 37%, but then now we are coming down to about 20% growth. But it is still growing. A good American friend of mine recently had to change the battery of his Tesla Model S, 6 years old. Do you know how much he paid for new battery? $27,000. You can buy a small car. So this is the reality of EV. And I'm fairly positively sure Mr. Trump will be re-elected. And he hates EV. So situation in the US will change very drastically. So China certainly, this year still growing, as you can see. As a matter of fact, I have a data to June, but it was too late for me to change. This is a survey made in different countries. In the US, 67% of the people interviewed still like the gasoline engine. China, 33%. I think as of June, the total sales of a car, already more than 50% are EV in China. When I am not driving, as a passenger, I like it. But when I have to drive, I have to always worry about charging. So this was the first quarter. BYD grew, but Tesla went down, the all other went down. And the one thing, California still is more than 60% are Tesla, but in New York State, less than 50% are Tesla now. Tesla is losing its share. But I don't see any Chinese car because Mr. Biden put up 100% duty and it gets to be too expensive. So now BYD is making a plant in Mexico so that he can push out in the States. I inquired the dollar amount of PCBs used by Tesla Model 3. This was about several years ago. And the three PCB assembling makers, one Pegatron, and the another one is Jabil. The another one I can't remember, a friend. He invested it for me, and they all came back with the answer, $400 PCB for Tesla Model 3 at that time. And I have been following this data for many years. So average usage of PCB by car is estimated to be about 100 from cheap end to the high end. And EV, and as low as $80 to about 200. Mercedes, BMW, Lexus, all these guys are using up to 200. And the EV is said to be about 200 to 300. And some EV may be using a little bit more PCB. And believing that 94 million cars manufactured in 2023, average usage of PCB per car is 100, then came out to be 9.4, which was the data I showed you before. It's not a coincidence, it is a fact. So, how do I see what kind of a PCB is used for automotive? SSB is a single-sided board, double-sided board, multi-layer board, typically between 4 and 10 layers. And the HDI boards, I found out, they are typically 4 layers up to about 18 layers for automotive. This heavy copper board, because EV requires a lot of power. And then high frequency boards, which is typically HDI, because if you are now driving, car has to be connected to the crowd, and to communication, you need a very high end of a PCB. And then flex rigid board. So these are the shares, and someone, my friend, asked me, Naga-san, can you make a forecast to 2025? I refused because I don't know what's happening tomorrow. But, all right, looking at the forecast of the car sales, I said, all right, oops, this may be it. But the interesting part, this is IDC, International Data Corporation, predict the semiconductor usage of automotive. I have been tracing the relationship between semiconductor and printed circuit board for the last 40 years. And whenever $1 of IC is used for product, 0.17 or 17 cents of a PCB is needed. So if you use the formula 88 billion semiconductor, multiply 17%, that's approximately $15 billion by 2027, 5 years from today. I think a lot of people agree This is the train. So, navigation system, ADAS, automatic car. In a situation like this, you cannot see the lane. How the hell the car knows where to go? The only way you can safely drive a car like this is with internet. Okay, download the map. And that's where HDI, high-end computation, is necessary. So at this moment, let me talk about PCB used by Tesla 3. They're all kind of boards by Nikkei Automotive, very, very useful magazine here. And this is the battery. They're all kind of batteries, but they have 1, 2, 3, 4 units. And you see the long flexible circuit board, which is connected to the battery cell. The lithium battery, if the temperature goes beyond 120 degrees, boom, explodes. So it's very important to control the temperature. And then each one of the modules has a separate controller. So already 4 circuits, and the long flexible. So in this case, they use a cylindrical batteries made by Panasonic. And then this is surrounded with a copper heater cooler. And the lithium battery is interesting. If it goes too high, the temperature explodes. And once you catch a fire, you can never stop until it exhausts the energy. So that's one dangerous thing. But in the cold country, battery doesn't perform. So this is a cooling and heating. The heating is done by engine heater. Cooling has to have a separate thing. So it's a very, very complicated design here. And you can see the diagram. So this was a controller board enlarged. This is the onboard charger. You get 3-phase from outlet and the capacitor here, and then get out the 2-phase DC to charge your battery. I think he has 1, 2, 3 different kind of boards. And this is inverter. You see, in the normal way, the normal outlet is about 170 in the US, 117 volts or 220 volts. Battery is typically 400. So if you take the juice and then onboard raises the AC to AC 400 and then AC to DC 400. And then 400 DC to 800 DC because the motor is 800. And then DC to AC. So many inverters and converters. That's where the power circuit is needed. Nikkei press people said, hey, this looks like an American flag, American continent. That's a joke. There are 17 silicon carbide for conversion. And now this is one of the hottest semiconductor devices today for automotive. This is autopilot plant, very famous. there are two chips designed by Tesla, but it is fabricated by Samsung in Korea. And this board, 14 layers, has 4,700 components mounted on here. Very, very, very complicated. And this is the actual board before components are mounted. AKM Meyway, Chinese company, which they bought from TTM Technology. There are a few companies making this board. Olympic is another company. So, these are body control. The center body control, front line is, oops, sorry. How do I go back? Okay, now I see. So this board has a function of MQ, microprocessor control, autonomous drive, and general electronic control unit, and cooling pump control, and power steering, headlamp, inverter, front drive, and multimedia radar system. And on this side, seat and door, left side, seat go up and like that, moving, and the inverter, the pressure. So each three of them are different functions. You wouldn't realize because these boards are all buried under the dashboard. So you don't see anything, but actually they are there. And this is an 8-layer structure. One of the board, very interesting, is pin in, not the surface mounting, for some reason. So the card key entry, door open up automatically. 3-phase input, and the high voltage system. And there are 8 cameras in Tesla 3. And the triple forward camera, they don't use a LiDAR system for. And the display, radar, short radar, long range radar. So, all in all, at least 30 PCBs are used for Tesla. I think more like 50, in my opinion. So it has been interesting to observe a flexible circuit board. NAK, Nippon Mectron, which has a big plant in here, Thailand, Ayutthaya. And now, several years ago, more than 60% of Nippon Mectron was FEC for Apple. Now they are down to about 40%, and the usage for automotive is increasing very, very strongly. Lamp. See, there is a lamp, and this is the gearbox. And there's a battery connection. Yeah. And gradually, the wire harness is being replaced with a flexible circuit board to weight control. And there's an interesting wiper. This wiper has a heater. So in a cold country, in the morning, when you turn on, wiper doesn't work. So heater will warm up and then start working. And there's a lot of ADAS. As you see, battery connection here. It's all flexible circuit. hybrid. These are Prius, control board for Prius. There's another door control, PCB there. One big problem at this moment regarding automotive PCB is a rapid price erosion in ordinary PCBs, particularly from Chinese PCB. As we saw in previous slide, 1/3 of the global car production made in China. And so everybody who wants to get into automotive, the only way they can win is to lower the price. So the once very profitable automotive circuit board business is getting to be not so profitable. So capable people going more and more into high end of a product like HDI, heavy copper, and whatnot. The Japanese makers dominated automotive production in Thailand with 100% share. But 1 year ago, BYD came, and then a lot of other companies coming. So eventually, I think a Japanese position will be eroded. I think this is probably end. But I think Thailand certainly in the future will become one of the largest country for producing PCBs for automotive industry. That's for sure, I'm convinced. Thank you very much.
ค่ะขอเสียงปรบมือให้กับดรฮายะนากาฮาระ NT Information ค่ะก็จบไปแล้วเนี่ยค่ะสำหรับหัวข้อการบรรยายในหัวข้อ Automotive Change and Development ค่ะซึ่งแน่นอนว่าสำหรับในหัวข้อต่อไปนะคะเราจะกลับมาเจอกันในช่วงเวลา 15:15 นาทีกับหัวข้อ The Influence of Future to Purify Converged AI Chipset on PCB Repeated Material ค่ะในช่วงนี้เดี๋ยวเราขออนุญาตพักเบรกด้านหน้าเวทีสักครู่และกลับมาเจอกันค่ะ